everyone, my name is Richie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm excited to share with you my February wrap-up. If you're new to this channel, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. I post new bookish videos every Wednesday. If you also hit that bell, dude, that will notify you when I post new videos so you won't miss any of my content. Without further ado, let's get into the 6 books I read in the month of February. If you don't know, I always rank my wrap-up, so I start with the book I rated the lowest and go up to the highest rating. That ensures we end on a positive note. So the first book I have to share with you today is Hunting Prince Dracula. This is by Carrie Maniscalco, and this unfortunately really fell flat for me. As you guys would know if you watched my January wrap-up, I read Stalking Jack the Ripper and then this book for the YA BookTube Awards. And I have to say, I was not a huge fan of either of these books. To be fair, I found this one to be a little bit better than the first book in the series, but not enough to give it a much higher rating. I think they both got 2 stars from me. For me, my biggest issue is with our main character. She just doesn't seem as feminist to me as a lot of people make her out to be. Ebbs and flows of the series we saw in the first book came to play in this book, and they were different villains in different locations, but the way certain things came about felt the same, so it made it seem like a formulaic kind of story. Also, if you're interested in more detailed thoughts about any of the books I mentioned in this video, I have Goodreads reviews for all of them, so I will link those down below. Next up, we have A Wrinkle in Time. I read this for the movie that's coming out next weekend, and that's really exciting. However, I buddy read this with Alice at Girl of Yarn. I will link her channel down below. She was like my first booktube friend, so it's really nice to be buddy reading a book with her again. If you don't know, this is a classic children's book that details kind of portal traveling. It's sci-fi and it's really great. I think I read this as a kid, but I don't remember anything from it. And I have to say it didn't live up to my expectations or my memories of how much I liked it. So I did really like a lot of aspects of it, and it was fun. A lot of the things they did were very unique. I really enjoyed the friendships and the family dynamics, and I really loved the characters. I can really see why the story stayed around through the test of time, because the characters and the relationships they have and just the struggles they go through are full of such universal truths that will be a part of people's existence for a long time. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I am unsure if I'll be continuing with the series because these are kind of companion-y books. So let me know what you think if you've read any of the other books in the series, if I should continue. Next up, I have read a book that everyone on BookTube has been raving about for years and years and years, and that's Illuminated by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. It's a science fiction story where we are in space on different spaceships, and there is an AI that helps run these spaceships, and the AI starts killing people. What's unique about this book is it's told in a multimedia format, so this is kind of case briefings, transcripts of recordings of what has happened, things like that. And I have to say it wasn't as good in my opinion as it was hyped up to be. I did end up giving this a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. However, everyone like raves and raves about this book, and I found a lot of it to be predictable, a lot of it to be tropey, and neither of those things necessarily make or break a book for me. I think there is a time and a place for tropes, and I definitely think predictability, especially for me, doesn't necessarily ruin a story. It's about a lot of the other things going on in the story. However, the characters really I didn't feel invested to them. I didn't feel invested in the story. And then there's this reveal that happens about halfway through the book, maybe 60% of the way through the book, and I latched onto that, and I loved that because I finally felt invested and emotional about what was going on. I was like, yes, this is rich stuff. And we get to the end, and everything that was revealed at that point is kind of crumbled down, and it made me like feel sad because all the things that I had enjoyed about the book that made me feel more invested and emotional about what was going on weren't true. Next up is another book I had to read for the YA BookTube Awards, and if it weren't for the awards, this is a book I probably would have never read, and this is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. So even though this is a horror, I was kind of skeptical about reading it, and then I heard mixed reviews about it, and I was like, I actually really enjoyed this book way more than I thought I would. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. A lot of the complaints I've heard about this book is that it doesn't feel like it combines the story plots very well. Like it feels like a contemporary, and it feels like a horror, and those aren't integrated well. In my opinion, they're integrated really well. In horror and in slasher films, like this book is trying to be, you have to have this like realistic grounding in order to feel invested in the characters, understand their story, where they're coming from, etc. And I think Stephanie Perkins laid that groundwork really beautifully, and I think there were so many moments that really felt suspenseful and mysterious, and like a horror movie would. Like, not jump scares necessarily, but like you just feel tense while reading it. And then the horror moments, the gory moments were vivid. Another main complaint I've heard about this book is that the reveal at the end doesn't feel like a good payoff. So essentially, we're not talking about like the whodunit, you figure that out. There is a thing from our character's past, essentially, and it's hinted at but not talked about until the end. Because I had heard so much about people being let down by that, I was expecting it to be not very good, and I actually really enjoyed what it was from her past that she was kind of hiding and like didn't want to approach and think about too much. I thought it was a very like legitimate and understandable concern for a teenager, especially someone who's growing up today. I thought it was very, very well done, and I really, really liked that, actually. I really did like this book. It was way more than I expected, and I'm glad it won the YA Booktube Awards for the horror mystery thriller genre. Next up, I have 2 5-star reads. The first one I want to talk to you about is Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. If you do not know, this is the 3rd book in the Diviners series, and this is one of my favorite ongoing series. I love it so much. The Diviners is set in 1920s New York City, and it follows a diverse cast of characters who are going through their lives, living their lives, when a supernatural serial killer comes to town. In the first book, we follow a character named Evie O'Neill, and she is with her uncle who works in an occult museum, and they are trying to solve this paranormal murder, essentially. It's so great. And we slowly are integrating this very vastly diverse group of characters into the Diviner's arsenal. And as the books progress, the stakes kind of get higher, and their relationships form in different ways, and diversity is tackled well. I really love these books so much. The 3rd book was such a good book. It was not a disappointment at all. I think it was wonderful. And we're to the end. This is my favorite book I've read in the month of February, and this was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. This was Trevor Noah's memoir, and I've been meaning to read this for so long. This is hands down my favorite memoir I've ever read. It was so good, so truthful, so honest, so gripping. In particular, things that just stood out to me about Trevor's memoir was his discussion about the apartheids and the time he was born in. He talks about how it was different than most people's childhood. He also talks and tackles ideas of racism, a lot about the mistakes he made and why he doesn't necessarily regret those decisions. He talks a lot about being biracial. I just really loved all of the things that went into this book, and it's recently been optioned to be a movie, and it's going to be starring Lupita as his mother, and I can't wait to see that come to fruition because it's going to be beautiful, because this book is beautiful. So that is all for my February wrap-up. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you should give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and go ahead and comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and if you haven't, let me know what your favorite book you read in the month of February was. That's all for today's video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
Baby, I beg you, yeah.